Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Man Cave. When I look in the mirror, I see the old man there, but he doesn't look like me. He's got too much gray hair. And then my mind drifts back to 1963, when my brother and I built our first house up in those sassafras trees. And then I look in the mirror and I see that old man there. He doesn't look like me. He's almost too much to bear. Now I'm back in 1983. And we've got a new house now, and our family is complete. But then I look in the mirror and I see the old man there. He doesn't look like me, and he seems too unaware. Then came the change of the century, and we live on a farm now, and I'm a retiree. But then I look in the mirror, I see that old man there. I don't know what to say, I know it just ain't fair. Now I find myself in the present day. You've got gray in your hair. I guess time has made it that way. And then I look in the mirror. It slowly dawns on me that we've had a good life as God meant it to be. And then I look in that mirror. I don't know why, I just don't throw it away. I guess it beats the alternative. That's all I can say about that. Well, the boys left this morning, and that's always sad for me. We had a good time this time. I really tried to spend a lot of time with them. We knocked down that building, and I showed Trent how to operate that skid steer some more, and do things like that. We monkeyed around with the old dump truck, and Trent helped me put the water pump in that and stuff. We rode some four-wheelers and stuff. We hunted a little bit together. We didn't do very much hunting. They're not into that too much, especially the sitting part. And let's see, then every night, for 3 nights in a row, we had a pool tournament, a billiards tournament. And we played 2 games each night, the first 2 nights, and I won. Now I think about it, I guess it was I guess we had it 3 nights in a row, and I won 6 games in a row. So I won 2 games each night for 3 nights, so I won 6 games. Well, the last night, which was last night, we decided to play 3 games, and they kicked my tail. I didn't win a single game, and I wasn't letting them win either. They just, had moments of brilliance. And they beat me on all 3 games last night. So, of course, that was the perfect way for them to end everything because, they were really excited that they beat Grandpa playing pool, It's not like I can really play very well. I do okay. In other news, did you happen to see that the leader of Guinea-Bissau was deposed, the military takeover and everything? I don't know what to think about stuff like that when you see that. You wonder, is that going to be better or worse? It sounded like the leader they had wasn't real good, and they were in the middle of an election, and that didn't sound like that was real good either. So the military kind of just took over. I don't know if that's going to turn out to be a good thing for that country or what. Hope it will be. I just hate to see the wars and all the stuff all the bad stuff. We need more good stuff, But I have a feeling if Trump has his way, the Venezuela is going to do something similar. I don't know if that'll happen or not, but you never know. I wrote down, I asked Grok, I said, give me a list of 20 things that are different now than in 1954. That's all I said. I just said it like that. So here's that list. I'll just read it to you. Well, of course, the internet didn't exist in 1954. Now over 5.4 billion people are online. Commercial jet travel barely existed. The Boeing 707 entered service in 1958. Today, billions fly annually on jets. Color television was brand new and extremely rare in 1954. Now 8K smart TVs with streaming are standard. I remember seeing my first color television, and I don't know the year, but I'm going to say roughly 1962-ish, give or take a few years there. And it was my uncle, Alvin, and I think it was me and my brother Steve. He was my older, or he's younger than me, but he was the second oldest. And I think he and I were staying overnight at my Uncle Alvin's. And I think that may have been because my brother Scott was, just about to hatch at that moment. I think that's what it was, if I remember right. Let's see, the number 4 here. The first successful organ transplant, kidney, happened in December of 1954. Today, heart, lung, liver, face, and hand transplants are routine. Wow. Polio was paralyzing tens of thousands of children per year in the U.S. The Salk vaccine, 1955, and later Sabin vaccine essentially eradicated it in most of the world. The European Union did not exist. The EEC was founded in 1957. Today, it's a 27-nation bloc with a single market and currency for most members. Decolonization. In 1954, most of the Africa and much of Asia were still European colonies. By the 1970s, almost were all independent nations. And that's what I was referring to there with the Guinea-Bissau country there. It says the population of the world has more than tripled. 2.7 billion in 1954 and 8.2 billion in 2025. The Soviet Union was one of the 2 superpowers. It collapsed in 1991. Segregation was still legal in the U.S. Brown versus the Board of Education was decided May of 1954, but implementation was slow. Legal segregation is now unthinkable in most countries. The first McDonald's with the Golden Arches opened in 1955. Fast food chains are now global giants. I remember seeing the very first McDonald's in Missouri, and I don't know if it was, I think it was one of the very earliest ones. It was in the Florissant, Missouri area. I don't know if Florissant's the right exact town name, but it still existed a very long, I don't know how long ago, and it still had those old original arches that went over the building for many, many years. I think it may still be there. I don't really know. Let's see, DNA. This was number 12, by the way. Double helix structure was announced in 1953, but its implications were barely understood. Today we have an acronym of CRISPR, I don't know what that is, gene editing, and consumer DNA testing. Credit cards were virtually unknown. Diners Club was 1950, American Express 1958. Now digital payments and buy now, pay later dominate. The first pocket transistor radio appeared around 1954. That was the Regency TR-1. Now virtually everyone carries a smartphone that's orders of magnitude more powerful. Rock and roll exploded onto the scene in 1954-55. Bill Haley, Elvis, Chuck Berry, popular music has gone through dozens of revolutions since. The hydrogen bomb was brand new and terrifying in 1954. Today we worry about hypersonic missiles and cyber warfare. Women's workforce participation has roughly doubled in most developing countries since the 1950s. The Antarctic Treaty, 1959, and the Outer Space Treaty, 1967, created entirely new realms of international law that didn't exist in 54. Container shipping was invented in 1956 by Malcolm McLean. Global trade and supply chains are completely transformed. In 1954, almost no one had ever seen a computer. Today, large language models like me are having conversations with you. And that's Grok talking there. 21, this is a bonus. It says culture, it's a culture one. And it's in 1954, the phrase "under God" was added to the U.S. Pledge of Allegiance, and the same year, the first Godzilla movie premiered in Japan. Two very different markers of the Cold War era, it says. The world of 1954 would be almost unrecognizable today, and vice versa. And I would have to say I tend to agree with most of that. I remember my first Godzilla movie. I know we went to a drive-in theater to see it. The old drive-in theaters. Those were kind of cool. I remember seeing some Elvis movies there and different things. I think I maybe saw Born Free there too, if I remember right. The old that movie about the lions, I think it was. Let's see. Nope, I'm not going to play anything. Let's see. Had you worried there for a second, didn't I? Let's see. The title was about the new stock that I'm working on. I'm going to try not to use any offensive words. You can see this is the original stock. This is a plastic nylon stock. This is the wooden version that I'm working on. And these ripples that you can see, that's all going to be figured wood eventually. It's really going to be pretty if it holds together. There's a crack right here that I've repaired, and I think that'll go away once I start carving in everything. I don't think you'll see that, but I'm hoping it holds together. It's also had a few little cracks here on the ends, but I've glued them back too. I've got the channel roughed out, and it's only roughed out, and it's shallow here and gets deeper down here, and I was able to do that, and you'll see that in the video whenever I do put a video out on this. I hope I get one out on it. And I did these holes where that's where it actually attaches to the barrel. So I've got a lot of work to do on it. I have to cut out these deep chambers in here. And that's going to be fun, cutting those out. But I think I can handle that. Let's see. Got to be careful where I lay that. Otherwise, I lay it on the world's finest mandolin ever built by a human. And that would be terrible. Let's see. This afternoon, after we're done here, I think I'm going to grab some insulation and a piece of plywood, about a 2-foot square, and I'm going to go fix the ceiling inside the well house. If you may remember, I put a new roof on the well house back there, and we painted it, but the inside ceiling had collapsed in one small area because it had been leaking there. So I'm going to go up there and fix that, and make sure that the heater's working in there so that the water doesn't ever freeze up. And I don't know what else I'll do, but that shouldn't take me too long. I shouldn't say that, because you know what that means. Instantly, it's going to take forever. But it should only take 15 minutes to fix that. But I just jinxed that one all to heck. So let's go to the comments here. And oh, by the way, in addition to it being my birthday, it is also the birthday of Jesse Burge. He is 80 today, and he is the fellow that built the guitar for Cash. So Jesse, happy birthday if you see this. B.H. Ringer says, good afternoon from Nova Scotia. And Ronald Todd is, good afternoon from the West Banks of New Jersey. Bill Webb's there. Good afternoon. And let's see, Dottie's there. Jerry, I can't carry a tune in a bucket, so here is me singing happy birthday. And imagine it sounding great. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday. God bless you, happy birthday to you. I sang it for you, sort of, kind of. Thank you, Dottie. And Dottie also made a contribution for my birthday as a present. So thank you, Dottie. You didn't need to do that, but I sure do appreciate it very much. Thank you very kindly. Let's see. Moving on down. She's praying for us. Ben Boyd's there. Bill Hyder, happy birthday. Thank you. Brian Byler from Snowy, Ohio. That's where the boys are going back today. Sue had to meet their father halfway, somewhere around Effingham, Illinois. Kim Z from Arizona is there. And let's see, Benita is there, and she's talking to Dottie, it looks like, and talking about snow. And Bill Rhodes is there, says good afternoon. Dottie says the snow's really pretty from a distance. As a kid, yeah, your perspective on snow changes a lot over time. It doesn't bother me too much. It really doesn't. Where we are here, as remote as we are, it's not a problem getting out for me. I mean, when Sue and I were first married in '76, we lived under an S-curve hill, and it was shaded on both sides by giant cedar trees. And it's a real steep S-curve hill. In other words, it didn't go straight down. It made a big S-curve going almost straight down. Very steep hill. And that was the year, and some of you may remember the winter of '76, '77, and maybe the next 2 or 3 years, in fact. It snowed more than we've ever got snow. And it was all because I lived under that hill. So I quickly moved out after about 4 years of that. But I actually had my truck spin completely around in a 360 going down that hill more than once. And fortunately, I never hit anything, but it was real close a couple of times. That was bad. There was over 30 days in a row one time I had to put chains on to get out to go to work. Oh, it was bad. So getting out here, most of you would think this is horrible, but this is a piece of cake. I mean, I'm not saying it to sound, cool on the video. I'm saying seriously, this doesn't bother me even that much on getting out in the snow. If it snowed a foot, I could get out of here in no time at all. Wouldn't be a problem at all. But where I used to live, not so much. Not so much. Let's see. And that was before we moved to St. Louis County. That's, in fact, after we moved out of that S-curve hill, we went to St. Louis County, and then we lived right on Highway 100, and that was a piece of cake also. But here, this is nothing. Absolutely nothing. Ronald Todd says, happy birthday. And he's singing it there, too. So let's see. Thank you, Ronald. And Gino Hitch. Hi, Jerry and friends. Great Thanksgiving. Hope everyone else did too. Yeah, well, I meant to say that. I hope you all did have a great Thanksgiving. We had a fairly quiet one here. It was just Sue and I and the boys. But it was very nice. Loved having the boys here. Benita says, she's talking to Dottie there. And let's see, moving on down. It scrolled on me. Got to catch up here. Looking mostly for the question marks. So if I don't see question marks and I don't read your comment, don't get too mad. Wayne Blitz says, good afternoon, Jerry and friends. Great Thanksgiving. And let's see. Then Rod Wintler has question marks. He says, happy birthday, Jerry. Thank you. And Dottie has the word farmer there. I'm not sure what that means exactly. Then Bill Webb says, happy birthday. Thank you, Bill. Disc Over says, what a contrast, music and the lyric. Okay. I'm not sure what the contrast is. Contrast for me is just looking in the mirror. There's days I feel my age. There's no question. But overall, I don't feel like I look. But I did tell you that I finally, am at the age now that I have looked for the last 25 years. Bill Mumbo, wood turner Phil Anderson is very ill and may not be able to keep his channel going. He posted what may be his last video last night. Oh, that's sad. I don't know that I've watched him, Phil Anderson. I'm not sure I know that one offhand. I have seen a number of wood turners. That's sad. Simon Jardine says, happy birthday, Jerry. My next one is the dreaded Big 6-0. If I'd known I was going to get this far, I'd have taken better care of myself in my younger days. Boy, I can ditto that one, Simon. I can definitely ditto that one. Let's see. Richard Polite says, happy birthday. We have the same shirt on today. Couple of snappy dressers. Well, I think so. I like flannel shirts, and especially when it's cold out, they're nice. Bill Mumbo, happy birthday. Wavy Gravy, the Secretary of Transportation wants people to stop coming to airports dressed only in their pajamas. What's happened to this country? I don't know. There's a lot that's happened to this country since 1954. Do you remember back in 1954, if you had a phone, and that's if, it could have been a party line, number one. And number two, 100% sure it would have had a dial on it if you could dial it. Some of the phones back then you couldn't even dial. You had to pick it up and talk to the operator, still. That was pretty much phased out by 54, but could have been around. There's places that I'm sure that existed for quite a while, actually. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story, a funny story, that when I worked for Bell, the first job I had was customer service. I was a service rep, and 50% of the job, well, probably 75% of the job was, talking to the customers, taking orders, handling any kind of issues, problems on the phone that they had. That was 75% of it. The other 25% was collections. So we'd have to call people about their phone bills and, try to collect the money and all this. Well, I had a guy that I could tell you a number of stories on this, but just one specific story. The this guy had deserted, and I tracked him down through his long distance phone calls and different things like that. I was able to track down where he went, and I found out that he went to Cobalt Mines, Idaho. Now, you think, how in the world did you track him? Well, I did. I tracked him down. So I start trying to find a phone number for him in Cobalt Mines, Idaho. Well, I don't remember how I ended up talking to this person, but I said, this is Jerry Rose of Southwestern Bell. I'd like to get a hold of, XYZ, whatever this guy's name was. I don't remember now. And I said, I'd like to talk to him. Is there some way I can give him a call, And she said, is this a joke? I said, no, it's not a joke. It's real. It's serious, I said, I need to get a hold of this guy. Now, we weren't allowed to tell why we needed to talk to him, but I just need to talk to him, It's important, And she goes, I think this is a joke. And I said, why do you think it's a joke? She says, well, there ain't but one phone in this whole town, and I have to ring it. So there was still some pretty rural things on the phone lines. Even that was in the 70s. So, back in the 50s, you could have had almost anything. Another similar type story on rural phone service. I also, later on, I got promoted to an outside rep. In other words, I would go out face to face and talk to customers and things. And I had a company car. And one of the places that we serviced out in St. Clair, Missouri, the phone line paralleled the electric line, on the poles like this, how it snakes down the poles, and you see the sag in the line. Well, our phone line paralleled the electric line for 12 miles straight. Well, the induction from the electric line was so strong by the time it got down to the 12 miles, you couldn't hear anybody on that phone, man. I mean, it was just solid static. And it was just pure induction from the fact that it was, sucking electricity across the air there through the wires. Craziness. Let's see. Moving on down here. Let's find something else. There's Simon. Let's see. Richard Polite says, happy birthday, Jerry. We have the same shirt on today. Couple of snappy. Okay, I read that one. Sorry, I thought. Okay. All right, then I think Hugh O'Connor's the next one I haven't read, I think. It says, transistor radios may not have been around until the 50s, but cat's whiskers crystal sets have been around since the 20s. Yeah, I knew about crystal sets. They were around much before that. But the transistor radio was a big deal. I remember in the 60s my dad getting one, and the thing was, the status symbol of it was, how many transistors does your radio have? I remember that distinctly because I think my brother had a little 2-transistor radio. My dad's, I think, had 6. Anyway, let's see. Do you remember that, though? Remember caring about how many transistors your radio has. I remember it very distinctly. Let's see. Dottie says, happy birthday, Jesse. Yep. And Bill Hyder, it's also the 100th birthday of the Grand Ole Opry. Really? Today? That's pretty cool. Gino Hitch, happy birthday, Jerry. Didn't know it was your birthday. Yes, it is. Hugh O'Connor, Jerry, I went to a hardware store and asked an assistant, what's best for getting rid of grease and grime? Ammonia cleaner was the response, so I asked someone else. Let's see, I went to the store and asked, so what's the best for getting rid of grease and grime? Ammonia cleaner was the response. Okay, I'll have to think on that one. For some reason, that one's not That one's not clicking with me yet. Happy David Tharp, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Okay, he's singing happy birthday. So thank you, David. Discover says we had a party line and operators. Yep. Well, Sue had a party line when I first started dating her. And that was in the 70s. Luke Arvell, 2269 says, just learned today that tomorrow is called Small Business Saturday. Do your community a favor and support a local mom and pop shop like Rosa Stringworks. Happy birthday and love yourself. Well, thank you. Yeah, I always do try to support the local businesses if I can, but most around here, it's not that easy to do. It's not that easy to do around here. There aren't that many small businesses, I guess, that I would call a mom and pop shop anymore. Kelly Manis says, is anybody else getting ads that run over Jerry? It doesn't pause, Jerry. Yeah, I realize that. I'm sorry about it. It just is what it is. And the only thing I can say, Kelly, is at least it helps me out. It does give me a little bit of income. My income has really fallen off since I quit putting out so many videos, but I expected that. Let's see. Ben Boyd. One reason people go to the airport in pajamas these days is because you basically have to strip down to nothing anyway just to get through security. Well, that's a good point. Might as well make it easy for them. Let's see. Wavy Gravy. As I slowly approach my 76th birthday, my doctor said there's nothing wrong with me. Uh-oh, it scrolled on me. I said there's nothing wrong with me that a few miracles couldn't fix. It's terrible when it moves on me when I can't find it right on the punchline, that a few miracles couldn't fix. Yeah, I'm right there with you, I think. Ronald Todd says, Kelly, I'm getting the same ads. I'm sorry, but it just is kind of what it is. I'm only a ammonia cleaner. Didn't help. I'm only a cleaner, ammonia cleaner. Okay, I'm only. Yeah, that was a far stretch for me. I'm only a cleaner. Okay, all right, okay. Let's see. Buzzy, that one scrolled on me too. Buzzy Musweller says, happy birthday. Discover says, our phone number consisted of 3 numbers and a letter. Yeah, well, ours, I remember in the 60s, ours was Tremont 27619. And I remember my best friend's was Wild 55218. That was Yorktown for the YO. They all had a little, I forget what they called that now. An exchange, I think is what they called it, an exchange. In the phone company lingo, it was called an exchange. Discover, our phone number consisted of 3 numbers and a letter. Let's see. Here we go. I think I lost my place again. Brian Byler says, Dottie, we have just getting a light snow. Not much. Okay. 49ers 616. Jerry went to Christmas in the Smokies in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Met Paul Williams' wife, who is Jimmy Martin's sister. Paul was a special guest 3-day show. Well, that's cool. Paul Williams is really good. Simon Jardine, is the rifle stock walnut, Jerry? You'll pay a premium for walnut here in Scotland, but they are very eye-catching and expensive looking. Yes, this is walnut, and it's walnut that I cut out of the tree right here in the front yard when I had those trees taken down a few years ago. Those are the only trees I've really ever paid to have anybody take down, and they were right up against the house, and they were huge. And I thought, I could do it. I didn't have any doubt I could do it, but the problem, was all the damage it was going to create in the front yard, and it could hit that we have a little concrete bridge across the creek and all kinds of things. And I could have taken them down without damaging the house, I don't think. But it wouldn't have been pretty. So I just paid to have it done. Well, anyway, after they got done and removing that, then the stumps were left there. So the whole trees were left there. I cut all the trees up and everything, but then the stumps were still in the ground. So I dug the stumps out with my backhoe and then sawed those into 2-inch blanks that I'm making this stock out of. Let's see. Ronald Todd, BR549. Yeah, that... Junior Samples. Okay, Dottie's talking to Brian there. Let's see. Ads are a small inconvenience for the internet show. We can always rewind a bit later ads if you miss something you wanted to hear. Glad Jerry gets some revenue. Well, thank you. Look, I'm sorry about it, guys. I wish it could be different, but, honestly... It's about the only income I got these days. I mean, I have a little Social Security, but that's it. Anyway, David Tharp, my first telephone number was 4 numbers, then went up to 5, then added a 2-letter prefix. Took 25 years or so. Yeah, I remember a lot about all that stuff. Actually, most of it, for me, my first memory is just a black rotary dial telephone, really. That's what, and then sometimes they were on the wall. David Thorpe says 15 years I meant. Okay. Instead of 25, I guess. Well, anyway, I was trying to think, I don't know if I want to tell these other stories or not. I have so many other stories when I was a service rep. Some of them are pretty gross. I don't know if I should tell it or not. It's pretty sick. I'll tell it, and I'm just warning you ahead of time. It's kind of sick. It's not, it's nothing that you couldn't, you don't have to send the kids out of the room, but it's pretty gross. This lady calls up, and she was, woohoo! You could tell she just wasn't right at all. Just the way she talked, just saying crazy stuff. People are crawling under my fence and stealing my puppies and eating them and things. She just said stuff like this, just constantly. And you were trying to figure out why she's calling the business office for the phone company. You figure there must be a reason. Generally there is. And so finally I got it out, and this went on for like 30 minutes. And finally I got it out of her that she was calling to have a pink Princess telephone. Do you remember those that had the 4-prong jack? That was the early modular telephone, if you will. And she wanted that removed. She didn't need it anymore. Well, so being the astute person I am, I called the installation or the installation foreman, or anyway, repair foreman, whoever it was, I can't remember now. But anyway, I called them and I put a bug in their ear that this lady is crazy. I said, you better be careful when you go out there because you never know what you're going to run into. So it wasn't long after that, the guy calls back to the office and he says, I ain't going in that house. And we said, why not? She goes, that lady has got at least 50 dogs in that house. And it says it is like 6 inches deep in the floor. He says, I'm not going in that house. So anyway, we said, well, back then customer service was everything. It didn't matter what the circumstances are. You had to be kind, gentle. You couldn't say anything negative. Everything had to be, it's like they monitored your phone calls, everything. It was unbelievable how it used to be. It's nuts compared to today. Well, anyway, so we said, well, could you maybe just take a bag up to the door and have her throw it in a bag or something like that? So apparently that's what they did. Well, then they called the health department, and that one got shut down, boy. I mean, like shut down big time. So another one, I'll tell you, this is a different story on collections. So I had been calling this guy. I couldn't tell you how many times I call him, and he'd give me a sob story, a sad this and that kind of story every time. So this time I'm thinking, I actually said this, but I know this sounds crazy. It sounds like I'm making this up, but I swear to God, I promise you, hand on a Bible, I said this to we called them tub mates, the person that sat next to you. We had a tub of files, and we called him our tub mate. Well, anyway, so I said to my tub mate, I said, I'm bringing the house down on this guy this time. That's what I actually said. So I call this guy. I don't remember all the details on this, but I start laying the law down. I said, sir, now we've talked about this many times. We'll be turning your phone off today unless you get to to a payment processing place. Some of them were banks, some of them were certain stores in certain areas that would accept phone bill payments. I said, so if we need to get there by this time. All of a sudden I hear him throw the phone down. I mean, like you could, the old bell in the phone, you heard it just hit the floor, bounce, and you heard it ring, and the connection didn't break. And I hear him yelling, quick, everybody get out! The house is caving in! He's screaming this. And you could hear footsteps and people running down the hall. And the phone connection never broke. And then you hear... and you hear all these noises. And then you could tell something broke and caved in. You could tell that over the phone. And then you hear ting, 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 ting. We're thinking, is somebody trapped in that now and they're tapping on a pipe, or what's the deal? So we call the fire department, and over the phone, the phone connection still has not broke. And we could hear the fire department coming, and so anyway, the next day in the newspaper, it showed the house, and the house was sitting on stilts, and that was during one of the Merrimack River floods, and the house went like this and just spun around, and it never broke the phone connection because it didn't leave. It just spun around and fell sideways where it was in the flood. So you can't even imagine how many weird things like that I had happen to me. It's like... I tell you about this Rose of Luck. I swear, I'm not making it up. It happened to me like a gazillion times in the business office there. I got more stories like that. You wouldn't. It's just unbelievable how that always seemed to happen to me, I don't know. It's just nuts. It's been that way my whole life. Anyway. Let's see. Wavy Gray says, I had an old girlfriend who had a party line. Whenever we detected that her neighbors would listen in, we would launch into these wacky dialogues just to drive them crazy. It was great fun. Yeah, I remember those kinds of days too. Let's see. Joseph Supley says, happy birthday, Jerry. The ads don't bother me. Well, thank you very much. Richard Polite, I'm so old my memory is in black and white. If I have a memory, mine's black and white. Simon says, now that you've described the wood, I can tell you it's going to be very eye-catching, but the grain is going to be very difficult to work, shape, especially finish. Yeah, well, I'm very, very, very familiar with all of that. I carved all those mandolins all those years in that hard curly maple. That's 10 times, well, not 10 times, but it's at least twice as hard to carve as this walnut. Walnut's easy to carve compared to maple, and curly maple's especially hard to carve. So I'm not worried about carving this walnut. That won't be a problem for me at all, I don't think. It might be for people that weren't familiar with carving wood, but for me, that'll be easy. It won't be any problem at all. In fact, I'm looking forward to the carving part once I get there, but I'm not going to do the carving part until I get the barrel fitted into this stock the way it is presently, mainly because the stock is squared up right now, and I can hold it in vices and things real easy and, level it and all kinds of stuff and, square it up and everything for drilling the holes in the cavities. And I'm going to keep it in that form for as long as I can. As soon as I know that the barrel's going to fit in it and I can screw it down, then I'll do all the carving. And then once I get all the carving done, then I'm seriously thinking about putting designs in it and or checkering or something like that. And that would really be cool. But I don't know. That's my thought. I don't know if I may be dishing out more than I can chew here. G&P Old Marine Shop. Hi, Jerry. I asked Grok if she knew of Mandolin Luthiers in Missouri, and your name didn't come up. LOL. Amazing app otherwise. Well, isn't that something? Let's see. No problem with walnut. Yeah, I don't think carving walnut for me is any problem at all. Carving maple, curly maple, was really challenging. Trying to think of what other woods did I run into over the years that was really tough. Carving the Osage orange was not easy. I didn't carve very much of that, but carving it at all, working with Osage orange, is pretty strong, hard wood. It wasn't terrible though. Really, I think the bird's eye maple and curly maple were probably the two hardest. The bird's eye maple is really tough too, because each one of those little bird's eyes is basically a little knot, like, it's a burl or something. And that can be really tough to carve too. Well, guys, I think that's everything I had for today. I appreciate y'all being here, and thanks for all the birthday wishes. I don't know what I'm planning for over the weekend exactly, but I will definitely see you on Monday, and hopefully we'll have something and get caught up here after these holidays. They kind of messed me up on the vlogs in terms of content. Looks like one more popped up there. Did your office ever have to deal with people making prank phone calls before cell phones and caller ID? Yeah, well, we would get complaints about things like that, and have to change phone numbers and different things. Ronald Todd says sycamore or ironwood. Sycamore is a great sound wood. I don't know a lot about ironwood. I've seen it, mess with it a little bit. Sycamore is pretty easy to carve, actually. Sycamore is really good wood, and if you get it quarter sawn, it always has a nice figure in it. So, but sycamore is not that tough. I'll tell you what's hard about sycamore. The thing that's the toughest thing about sycamore is drying it. Like if you cut it into boards, like 1-inch thick boards, by the time you get it plain flat, it may only be 5/8 of an inch thick, because it really warps and twists bad. So you have to allow for that when you cut sycamore, because it definitely does not dry nice. Most of the other woods do a lot better than sycamore. Sycamore is really tough. Otherwise, you would see sycamore way more being used, because it's a great wood. Once it's dry, it's really a good wood, but it's hard to get it to dry properly. That's the only thing I ran into with sycamore. After it's dry, it's a piece of cake to work and all that. We will see you on Monday with something else. Thanks for being here.